So the third one, rewrite the following expression so it contains at most one radical term that does not contain any perfect square factors. So we have the square root of 45, and previously we were putting these in Desmos, and we got a decimal. Okay, so decimal means bad. Okay, we can't just put in 6.71. We're simplifying, so it still contains a radical. A radical is the square root. So this is a radical. That needs to be in our answer. So no decimals allowed. It doesn't tell us to round. It's a radical. So it's saying 45, the number 45 has some perfect squares in there. So what we do is we start factoring, okay? So 45, and we're looking for perfect squares. That's why I said earlier it might be good to have these memorized. So I'm going to start with 2. 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. 5 squared is 25. And those keep going. I'm going to start dividing by those perfect squares. So 45 divided by 4, this gives me a decimal. That means I'm going to go on to the next one. Our next perfect square is 9. And it's divisible by 9 because 5 is not a decimal. So 9 times 5 is 45. So I'm going to break that down into perfect squares. 5 is a prime number. The only numbers that multiply to 5 are 1 and 5. And we could do that forever, right? So we're not going to do that. Once you get to a prime number, you just stop. And then 9 is, do you need to use your calculator? 3 times 3. So I'm going to rewrite this. Instead of 45, I'm going to use what we call the prime factorization. 3 times 3 times 5. And now we're going to do what it says here. Rewrite so it contains one radical term that does not contain any perfect squares. So we need to take out these. 3 times 3 is 9. That's our perfect square. So square root of 9 equals 3. So when we bring out this pair of 3's, let's do black, it's going to be just 3 because that's what the square root of 9 is. So now on the outside, I have 3. And then underneath the radical, we still have this leftover 5, and it just stays because it's not a perfect square. There's not a pair of 5's. And so my answer would be 3 square root of 5. And when you type that in, you do the 3 first, square root, this one, 5. And it needs to look like this. Okay, make sure your preview matches. And then check answer. That's right. Another way to check is if I put in the square root of 45 like we did in the beginning, all we're doing is rewriting it. We're not changing the answer. So these are equivalent. They're the same because all I did was rewrite the square root of 45.